I'm a huge fan of Alien 3. It's not perfect as it does have an abundance of flaws, but it's severely underappreciated both as a standalone science fiction film and an alien film. While many have since warmed up to David Fincher's much maligned directorial debut thanks to those horrible Alien vs. Predator films, for a long time it was regarded as one of the worst sequels ever made, a pariah of the series that undermined what many considered to be the best film of the franchise. It's not the least bit surprising that Aliens is the fan favorite. It has the most mass market appeal and is the most action-packed film in the series. It made the wise choice of not just trying to copy what was done in the original, instead focusing on suspense and action over dread and horror. It also added to the mythology of the alien in a way that made sense given what was established in the first film, and most importantly, it developed Ripley far beyond what we already knew. It made her a well-rounded character with a clear and relatable motivation, and pioneered the idea that a woman can be a bona fide action star. Basically, Aliens is one of the best science fiction movies ever made, one of the best action movies ever made, and one of the best sequels ever made. It's a crowd pleaser. I love it, you love it, everyone loves Aliens. So it's no wonder a follow-up like Alien 3, which is the complete opposite of Aliens, alienated a lot of viewers. And it doesn't waste any time doing so. Within the first 10 minutes, both Hicks and Newt are dead, killed off with almost no compassion or remorse for the feelings of the audience. This has always been a major reason why Alien 3 is regarded so poorly. Many felt that it was an easy cop-out, that it cheapened the events of Aliens. The thing is though that the Alien series isn't and shouldn't be about happy endings and getting what you want. The alien is supposed to be the deadliest creature in the universe, and what better way to reinforce that than by having it take away the victory that you thought you had. It keeps the alien from becoming an easily disposable monster and retains it as a threat. Killing Hicks and Newt was a bold choice, and while it stings knowing what happened to the characters we grew to like in Aliens, that is exactly the point. Their deaths reinforce the film's themes and builds on the survivor's guilt that increasingly defines Ripley as a character. It's the emotional hook that gets you to relate to her, and Ripley is by far the best part of the film. This was Sigourney Weaver's third time portraying her most iconic character, and it could be argued that it is her best performance in the series. At this point, she had the most experience, and it shows in how comfortable she is in the role. It's a reserved and confident performance that has Ripley dealing with the end of her life and coming to terms with those she lost along the way, as well as her relationship with the alien, whom she can't seem to get away from. Behind Weaver is a supporting cast that, while maybe not as iconic and instantly memorable as Alien or Aliens, I don't think gets enough credit. The two standouts are Charles Dance as the medical officer Clemens and Charles S. Dutton as Dylan, the spiritual leader of the prisoners. Dutton plays Dylan with an underlying rage that he hides underneath a kind, fatherly demeanor, a rage that can explode out at any moment before being reined in. He's the sole force holding the rest of the prisoners together in their pact to stay pure, and will do whatever it takes to keep the harmony. Then there's Clemens, who I think is one of the most underappreciated characters in the entire Alien franchise. He doesn't have a lot of flash, and he is taken out of the movie just as we start to get to know him more, but Charles Dance makes him stand out just by virtue of his mere presence. You just naturally grow to like him as he alone goes out of his way to help Ripley even when she refuses to tell him what's really going on. He's really sympathetic in a very subtle way. Ralph Brown as Aaron, or 85 as the prisoners call him, is also an interesting character. He doesn't make an impression right away, as he is relegated to right-hand lackey to Superintendent Andrews, memorably played by Brian Glover. But once Andrews is killed, he comes into his own. He's portrayed as a dumb but also sympathetic coward that gradually comes around to understanding the gravity of the situation, to the point where he willingly sacrifices himself just to make a point that he no longer buys the company's lies. There is, however, no denying that there is a large cast of characters here, meaning that most of them are given no development and exist merely as fodder for the alien. Still, some of them are interesting. Both Gallic and Morse, portrayed by Paul McGann and Danny Webb respectively, stand out, the former for his insanity and the latter for his foul-mouthed confrontational attitude. Returning for a brief appearance is also Lance Henriksen, who returns to play both Bishop and the confusingly named Bishop 2, the creator of the Bishop android. Henriksen endues him with a sinister sliminess that draws you in despite his limited amount of screen time. It's actually an inspired twist having Bishop, a face we've come to trust, become the face of the evil Weyland-Yutani Corporation. It helps give Ripley's final moments more emotional weight. But Alien 3 has a lot more going for it beyond the cast. While David Fincher, who has since become one of the most renowned filmmakers in the world, has disowned the film, there's no denying that the footage, the actual film itself, despite countless outside influences, has his fingerprints all over it. And it's this that makes the film truly worthwhile. Fincher's early films have a dark and nihilistic style, and you can feel that style in Alien 3. The tone is repressively depressing. All of the characters are in a constant state of misery, reflected by the look and overall feel of the art design and cinematography. 3, which is just as compelling a vision of the future as the prior films. The labyrinthian tunnels and corridors of Fury 161 feel dirty and grungy, and with the rustic orange and black color palette that defines the look of the film, makes the setting feel like some dilapidated industrial future hell. One of the more unique aspects of this vision is how medieval it feels, an aesthetic thankfully left over from the original pitch by screenwriter Vincent Ward, who imagined a monastery planet made of wood. Despite being in space in the far future, Alien 3 doesn't feel wholly sci-fi. In fact, in many ways it feels almost like a gothic horror in the Middle Ages, which further reinforces the mythical and religious themes of the film. The film as a whole is really well directed on all fronts. The acting is consistently good, and the dialogue scenes are intimate and engrossing. Even early in his career, Fincher knew how to compose a scene, as there are some visually beautiful shots. A highlight is actually the final chase through the leadworks, which makes an inspired use of POV, putting the audience in the eyes of the alien as it chases its prey, which serves to highlight how fast and ferocious this alien is. Which brings me to the alien itself. Credit must be given to what the third film contributed to the overall mythos of the creature. This was the entry that firmly established the idea that the alien inherits traits from its host. For the first time, we got to see what an alien is like when it incubates inside something other than a human, in this case either a dog or ox, depending on which version of the film you're watching. And this new variation is great. It's different in subtle ways while still remaining true to the classic Geiger design. Its movement and speed, the way it runs on all fours, feels more animalistic than previous aliens. It has a very vicious personality, killing whoever is in its path, either for food or to protect the developing queen. The alien is brought to life using a combination of man in suit, animatronics, and rod puppetry. And while the physical effects are very good, the rod puppet is rather famous for how terrible it looks. It's not integrated into the live action footage very well at all. They took a risk implementing a new experimental special effects technique. While that is to be commended, the end result doesn't pay off. Alien 3 may not have revealed as much about the alien as Aliens did, but what it did reveal has long remained valuable to the franchise, and the runner alien gave us a new kind of xenomorph without going crazy Kenner style. Personally, it's my favorite version of the creature. While there's of course no beating Geiger's original, this one will always have a special place in my heart for being the first alien I ever saw. Finally, Alien 3 also has a lot of interesting subtext going on underneath that I don't think is appreciated as much as it should be. A lot of people, especially when it was first released, mischaracterized this film as being a horror movie, which is understandable given it's a third film in a series known for being scary, but just like Alien and Aliens, Alien 3 attempts to integrate the familiar elements of the Alien franchise with an entirely different genre. While Alien was a straight up horror film, and Aliens was an action film, Alien 3 is more of a gothic drama. It's more art house than Hollywood blockbuster, another leftover from Vincent Ward's original idea. It's less about the alien and trying to be scary in the classical sense, and more about using those elements to both conclude Ripley's story and explore religious themes of death, loss, sacrifice, and redemption. You have Ripley, who falls from the heavens into the fiery, oppressive world of Fury 161, the closest thing to a literal hell you can get in a science fiction setting. Residing here are the worst of the worst, the vile, repulsive scum of humanity, who live out the rest of their days as punishment, waiting for the apocalypse so they can be redeemed and raised to heaven. That apocalypse comes in the form of Ripley, whose femininity disrupts the balance and tempts the prisoners. She brings with her the alien, the beast, or as Gallic calls it, the dragon, a demonic being that will kill everything and everyone. This beast is a test for the prisoners, the means in which they can be redeemed. Most of them work to fight against it out of pure self-preservation, and even manage to capture it, though at a great cost. But the insane Gallic falls prey to the demon's influence. While journeying into the beast's lair with Boggs and Rains earlier in the film, it kills them and baptizes him in their blood, twisting his mind into doing its bidding. He becomes its servant, letting it out of waste containment, to which the alien responds by killing him. The rest of the prisoners make the conscious choice to face the beast head on and even give their lives to stop it from being taken by the company. In this way, Ripley and the prisoners are Christ-like figures, taking the punishment meant for mankind in the form of the alien, which, had it and the queen been captured by Weyland-Yutani, would have inevitably infested and extinguished all of the human race. Each one of them dies, except for one, Morse, who, as mentioned earlier in the film, made a deal with God to live forever. But it is Ripley who makes the ultimate sacrifice. She has the chance for a normal life again, but rejects that knowing it is a lie. She will not sell her soul to the devil for a deal she knows is a con. She knows that as long as she lives, she will be connected to the alien until her dying breath. As she falls into the fires below, she clutches the baby queen to her chest, taking the alien with her, giving her own life for the rest of mankind's. It is an extremely satisfying, emotional, and poignant end to Ripley's story, and at the time, the Alien series. It still remains just as powerful an ending as ever, and just like the rest of Alien 3, is quite ambitious for not giving the audience what it wants, ending the story story instead of inflating it. It makes the first 3 Alien films one of the best science fiction trilogies around, in my opinion. And time has thankfully been very kind to this movie that was almost universally hated when it was released. As more has been revealed about the behind-the-scenes drama and the mistreatment of David Fincher by the studio, there is an overall better understanding of why the 3rd Alien film ended up the way it did. Many appreciate Alien 3 now, thanks especially to the assembly cut, which, while not completely representative of David Fincher's original vision, is as close to that vision as we'll ever see. It's a better, more well-rounded and thematically cohesive film, and thus superior to the more widely viewed theatrical cut, which cut out tons of footage, most notable being the entire Gallic subplot. Now, having said all that, I have to admit though that I am a bit biased when it comes to Alien 3. It was the first Alien film I ever saw at the tender age of 4, and thus was my introduction to the creature and the franchise, and it completely captured my imagination. Ripley's face-to-face with the alien in particular is still burned into my brain, and I think even those who dislike Alien 3 have to admit that it is one of the most iconic images of the series. Even at such a young age, I was drawn to the design of the alien. I thought it was one of the coolest monsters I had ever seen. It left a huge impression on me, and I instantly became a fan. Ultimately, Alien 3 is one of those films that suffered from too many cooks in the kitchen, too many creative visions clashing together. Considering this, it's actually a miracle the film came out the way it did. Despite all the behind-the-scenes drama, Alien 3 still manages to be a quality film with some great performances, marvelous production design, a distinct visual style, a fantastic soundtrack by Elliot Goldenthal, and interesting themes and ideas that cap off the original Alien trilogy in a very emotionally satisfying way. David Fincher went through his own hell to get this film done, and for all its problems, both structural and technical, his efforts are to be commended. Given how successful he's become as a director, I think it's safe to say he is the one responsible for making what should have been a disaster into a very good and unique film in its own right. Whether you still feel it is one of the worst sequels ever made or a misunderstood flawed masterpiece, there is no denying that Alien 3 is one of the most fascinating films ever made. So how do you feel about Alien 3? Do you love it like I do, or does it just not hold up for you? I'd love to discuss this film with fellow Alien enthusiasts, so please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more Alien related content going forward. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.